Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 14. Actually, let me edit that real quick. Week 14 of video marketing, or digital marketing, video marketing. I would just wanted to kind of take this time and first of all apologize for being a few minutes late. I'm sorry about that. I just had end of the semester, had some other meetings going on. Anyways, this is actually the last time I'll record because next week we'll be doing the final presentations, but I wanted to make sure I talked to you for one last time before the end of the semester. Just talk about a couple of things. So first of all, as you probably saw from the email I sent out last night, all the final projects are going to be due a week from Thursday. And hopefully that wasn't a surprise. Hopefully you knew that already. But just a quick reminder, and as always, I'd like to remind people that there are four components to that, right? First, the group project, which you hopefully have been working on and have finished up pretty much. Second, the group project presentation. Now, you'll be presenting that to me live, but I also want to see what you have actually decided to I want to see this final slide deck so that I have a placeholder by which I can easily grade it as well for the end of the semester. Then there's the creative content, which hopefully you will have done as well for the final project. And that will, you'll be uploading that. There's a spot to both provide links for that, but there is also a spot to provide other content as well for that. Just checking real quick, making sure everything is coming through. Oh, here we go. Let's just double check. Okay. Yeah. Sounds like I'm there. Okay, good. No, sorry, I had a moment of panic where I thought I wasn't getting any audio. So again, four things you're turning in for the final project is the project document, the creative content, and the presentation, right? So final project, document, creative content, and the project presentation. Wow, you'd think I would know this off the top of my head. And then the one last thing that you haven't looked at yet, or maybe you have, but it hasn't been required that you looked at it yet, is the peer evaluation, right? And I want to make sure everyone turns in this peer evaluation. In fact, you get 0 points for that portion of your grade, which I think is 5% of your grade, if you don't turn it in. So I highly recommend making sure you do it. And I always have somebody every semester who forgets to turn it in, so don't be that person, right? Remember to turn it in. Basically, if you turn it in, your grade for your group project evaluation becomes for the peer evaluation component, becomes the average of all of your teammates' grades. But if you don't turn it in, even if all your teammates rate you, you get a 0, right? And that's just a way to encourage everyone to make sure they turn that component in. So make sure that you turn that in as well. All those are due by next Thursday at midnight. So hopefully you're working on finishing them. Also, there's some videos up now on CRM and digital e-commerce. So hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at those and put them all together and taken examples of what's going on there. They're very interesting and they're very relevant to the content. Now, both of those topics, CRM and digital commerce, have been mentioned in various other components of the class, but this is kind of a nice way to wrap up our learnings in there. So take a look at those, kind of go through those, and there's some last material to read, okay? Other than that, there's no final reading because we're working on our group projects for the final semester, for the final week, and that's about it from that perspective. I did have a couple of questions come in just about timing and who needs to present, and as I said, I highly encourage everyone to present, right? I expect everyone to take a little bit of ownership for the class. I also, you get, as I mentioned in the one email, you get about 20 minutes to present, plus some time for question and answer. So that's a comment to look out on it. I know that yeah, and so I'll leave it at that, right? So I know that there, I don't expect everyone to present equally every portion of the class. the presentation, but I do expect if you can at all possible, that you present for some portion of the presentation. I think those are the only questions I've gotten that I can think of. Do you have any last questions? Oh, some people have asked about the formatting guidelines for the final project. I'm not a big stickler on these, right? As long as it looks like something you can hand a CEO, that you would be comfortable walking up to someone in the C-suite and saying, here's my write-up, please take a look at it and let me know what you think. I'm fine with it. We try and keep a standard look throughout, right? I don't want to see like you switching fonts and switching spacings between lines, right? Unless it makes sense to do so, like, you know, you're doing a block quote or something like that, right? But, you know, in general, try and keep the format looking uniform throughout, right? Okay. Yeah, I think that's about it in terms of those questions. I do want to take some time to talk about the last reading, which is the social CRM reading, and then I think we will pretty much be done for the course. Pull this up. Okay, there we go. Let me just expand it so you can see it a little better. Okay. So, okay. Yeah, it wasn't fully centered. Let's see if I can get that better. There we go. That looks good. Okay. So this reading I think is really interesting because it talks about social CRM, and if you're interested in more of my thoughts on this, also view the CRM video that's up online under week 14. But the basic idea behind social CRM is that we combine our normal CRM, which is tracking the transactions and interactions that we have with our customers over time, with those same customer social media data, right? And we'll talk about how and why you might want to do this, but let's first talk about, we'll talk about how you might use this and why you might do this later on, but let's first talk about how you can get them to sign up in the first place. So, you know, the best way to do it is actually go and ask the customer directly for their social media handles, right? So you can use rewards and incentives to ask consumers to provide that information. Amazon, for instance, was offering for a while a $5 MP3 credit to anyone who gave them their Twitter. Know if they're still doing this, but they were doing that at one point, right? So that's kind of an example of how you might wind up getting some of these numbers, some of this data directly, right? You can also use customized service interactions to map handles of CRM. So you know, if someone is tweeting at you and provides you with their address or their information in order to solve a customer service problem, then you know, legitimately you have the ability to now collect that address and monitor their interactions, right? Now you don't want to do this in a quote-unquote creepy way, right? So if someone is revealing information on their social media handle, there's been some studies that shown that they don't anticipate that a firm will be monitoring their content that's not directly aimed at the firm. So if I drink, you know, if I at, you know, Spectrum, right, then I expect a response from them. But if I'm just talking about my cable service and all of a sudden Spectrum starts tweeting at me about cable service, that can get to the creepy side of things, right? So it's important to keep that in mind. You can still use that information, but maybe not in that direct way that you're looking at. You can also look at linking data through other methods. You know, I kind of encourage people to think about this in more creative ways, right? Like running contests, like who can best refer, who can provide the best social media post on a particular topic, right? And to do that, you have to submit your social media address, right, or your social media content. So it can be reviewed. Social media information, if collected with knowing consent, can actually provide you with additional information into the life stage of the consumer, right? You can start to understand not only why this consumer is interacting with you, but where they are in their life stage, right? Are they starting a family? Are they getting a new job? Are they moving, right? You could use that information to help provide better offerings to them. You could also help determine if a user is utilizing a competitive product, or how you might cross-sell a product, right? So it might be the possibility that they're using you for a particular reason. They're using your products, but they aren't aware that you make another product, right? So let's say you're a high-end audio-visual company, and they're already buying your turntables, but they're using someone else for their Blu-ray players, but you make a Blu-ray player, right? So maybe you could provide this as an opportunity by noticing on their social media that they like to watch, high-definition movies. You could start to target them. And you don't have to say, we saw this on your Twitter account, so therefore we're targeting you. You could just start to send them emails about it, right, and see if there's any relationship there. As I said, they could become even more detailed, but you do need to worry about this creepiness. Knowing that the consumer has moved, got married, had a child, is something that they're not expecting most brands to know at this point. Now, this may become accepted. It might be just widely accepted in the future, but as of right now, it's not. All right. Okay. So another strategy, so another thing to think about is that you can start to take a proactive social media stance, right? You could, as opposed to a reactive social media stance, right? So you can consider both sides of this. So reactive social media stance is you wait for the consumer to at you, right? And then kind of respond to what they say. But proactive would be monitoring their conversations and then trying to figure out, maybe through machine learning and AI, times when it might be useful to intervene automatically. One thought of how to develop this strategy is just to try things out, right? Like try different approaches. And then if the current user matches or looks alike some of the previous experiments that have gone well, then use a similar approach, right? I would highly recommend always respond individually, right? Try and respond directly to a consumer if they're complaining. And if they're providing negative feedback, right? If they're complaining about the firm, try to move them to a private channel as quickly as possible. So it's not good to have a big old flame war on Twitter's main public channel, but you can move them to the DM, right, the direct messaging channels, and start to talk out their problems in those places. We know from past experience that people who are responded to in this way, that have their customer service issues addressed through social media, do think of this as a massively good use of social media and think positively about the company going forward, but they're more likely to complain again in the future. So if you've already moved them to the direct messaging channel, they might start to, when they need to complain in the future, also opening up that same direct messaging channel, which prevents their content from being viewed by the public. Of course, social media monitoring tools can help all this. They can help you notice when someone is complaining, notice when there are problems, and then respond to it appropriately. Just a thought experiment. Maybe go home today and think a little bit about it for the company you're working with for your project. What would be the ideal set of social media data that you could have about your consumers, right? And I often think it's useful to start analytics problems not by thinking about what we do have access to, but what would be the ideal set if we could choose exactly what we wanted, right? And then think about how could we obtain that data and what incentives we might provide to our consumers to provide us with the data. And then start to consider, like, if we took action on this, would the consumers be freaked out? Would they not understand what was going on? And that's always important, right? Make sure that it passes the sniff test of this is not going to scare a lot of people, right, before you decide to start using the content. Okay. That's all I want to say about social CRM. So that's the last reading. Hopefully it was useful for you, and I hope you kind of got something out of that. As I mentioned, if you want more, I highly recommend the CRM video that I put together as well. It talks about social CRM. It talks about some of these issues in more depth. Again, just to recap from the top of the hour, right? You should be working on your group projects. Your group projects are due a week from Thursday. Those projects consist of 4 turn-ins, right? The group project document, the group project presentation, and the group project creative, right? Even though I'll be viewing your project presentations one-on-one, I want to see the slide deck that you use that kind of serves as a placeholder when I'm assigning the grades. And then finally, there's of course the 4th element, which is the peer reviews. And everyone has to turn a peer review of all their team members, right? So definitely go ahead and work with that and make sure you get that done. Only other things is finish up reading some of the content in the textbook that I've assigned, and taking a look at those final few videos on so CRM and digital commerce, right? So I was just looking up the page numbers for those last two readings. I should have it shortly here. So yeah, it's chapters 10 and 14 that correspond to those two chapters. Okay. So that's it. Finish the group projects, watch the videos, finish the readings. And this is my final office hour for the semester. I really enjoyed having spent some time with all of you, especially those of you who made it all the way to the end of week 14 office hours, right? And I very much look forward to the final project presentations, and have fun over these last couple of weeks. Take care, everybody. Bye.